Where are they going? And I'm not talking about a country. Money flow is going into natural resources. It's going into gold.
Yep.
That's why central banks are buying it. When you look at what's the largest asset class that central banks around the world own? It used to be the US dollar. It's now gold.
Well, of course, we have Dr. Kirk Elliott with us once again. Every week is just one thing after another that we've been talking about, and relates to big time on silver and the moves being made there since we've been together at amweknow.com/gold. In the description box below, you can click on that link, have a conversation with Dr. Kirk Elliott or somebody on his team. They'll get back with you, answer your questions, and it's just great to be back.
It is so good to be with you. And, LT, there's literally never a dull moment.
That's right.
Ever. So, you hear the news from this week about how Iran is cutting a deal with the BRICS nations, right, to control the strait, at least over 40% of it. And here's what's crazy about that. With them doing that, they solidify basically where the Middle East is, right? Which is in bed with Russia, in bed with China. What have the BRICS nations said that they want to do? They want to de-dollarize the world. They want to be the kingpin. They want to replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency, right? So, so by doing this, they're thinking erroneously, in my opinion, that they're going to control the flow of oil as well. It's like, it's not going to happen, right? Because I think Trump has other things up his sleeve. Just like you go back to like Liberation Day, right? What does Trump do? This tariffs, right? So you've got all these tariffs. So other countries are going to foot the bill for, instead of us paying as much taxes as it was tax week this week. It's like, oh my word, I can't stand paying them, but you still have to pay them, right? So I go, when I said that, I just thought, okay, I'm going to get a bajillion calls. People was like, you shouldn't pay taxes. It's unconstitutional. It's like, well, I'm still paying them, right? So don't just leave me alone about that one, right? So anyways, pay these taxes, right? And I don't like what they're being used for, right? But if Trump's tariffs does what? It shifts the burden of paying taxes to other countries who want to sell to wealthy Americans, right? So then it's like, is that what the goal was? Or was the goal, Trump being the master of the art of the deal, was it a negotiating tool to get his way from countries that don't like us, right? And it's like, okay, we're going to tariff you. And what happened? Country after country after country fell into place. It's like, okay, we'll remove the horrible VAT taxes on stuff that's on American goods that are coming into our country, right? So Trump is winning on these issues, right? So but still, you've got this majority of people in the world want to de-dollarize us. So this is the battle at hand, and we've talked a lot about this, right? We've talked a lot about how do you do that? Well, Japan is dumping U.S. treasuries. China is dumping U.S. treasuries. They're getting rid of them. That lowers the value of the dollar. Nobody's going to want it. That's going to force the U.S. to print their way out of it. If other countries aren't buying it, we're going to create a massive inflation for ourselves. And this is what the rest of the world wants. But what I wanted to share is how this is kind of playing out right today, because we've talked about it before. But there was a couple of videos that you and I were talking about that I wanted to share with the audience, right? All the end we knowers. The first one, this is really interesting. So let's watch what they say about de-dollarization and the Federal Reserve, right? Because I think this is very eye-opening.
Okay, here we go.
This crisis is different, right? If when you hit the wall and you're trying to issue treasuries and the Fed is the only buyer and the prices of the treasuries are going down and interest rates are up, that's a dangerous thing. And so the thing I am talking about now is we know, people say, when are you going to hit the wall? I obviously don't know. It's impossible to know. But the law of economic gravity, you're not going to know that. So, and when we hit it, it will be vicious. So we have to prepare for that eventuality. And I think we need an emergency break the glass plan, which is targeted and short term on the shelf. So it's ready to go when we hit the wall. This crisis is different, right?
He sounds a little nervous.
Well, so he sounds a little nervous. It's like, who is Hank Paulson, right? So he was the, I think, 74th Treasury Director, right? He served under George W. Bush. Billionaire investment banker, right? So he said something in there that was very interesting. It's one sentence that was the most telling thing. The Fed is the buyer of last resort. Like, of what? U.S. Treasuries. Why? Because the rest of the world is starting to de-dollarize. So we still have to buy U.S. Treasuries. Somebody has to buy them, right, to still make ends meet for the government, right? So U.S. government makes money. The Treasury Department makes money when people are buying U.S. Treasuries. Well, what if nobody's going to buy U.S. Treasuries? It's like, there's going to be somebody that's going to buy them. It's the Fed, with money that they print out of thin air by pressing the red button on the printing press and say, we've got money, we'll buy these treasuries. Why do you think we have inflation, right?
Yeah.
But what he said is basically putting the icing on the cake, the cherry on top with a candle on everything that we've been talking about de-dollarization. He said, yeah, this is happening. This is my interpretation of what he said. This de-dollarization thing is happening, and we know that it is because the Fed is buying the U.S. Treasuries, not the rest of the people. And see, this is where governments can trick people into saying our currency is strong. Let's say the dollar is strong. People are buying it. We go to every treasury auction, and it's 100% covered. They're all being sold. Who's buying them, though? I don't consider the Fed buying U.S. Treasuries as a legitimate buyer,
right?
Because they're printing money out of thin air to do it, right? And this is very, it's an inflationary policy, right? Which is why we have inflation, which is why since the Federal Reserve started, they've been doing this since the Federal Reserve started in 1913, is they're printing money out of thin air, buying treasuries, propping up governments, making those bankster families who own the Fed, it's like 7 of them, very wealthy, right? It's like, how wealthy can you get when you can actually make interest off the United States by something that has no value to it because you can just print it at will? I mean, this is the system that needs to change. This is the reset that needs to happen, right? And so Scott Bessent, current Treasury Secretary under Trump, he basically had an interview this week where what did he say? It was a quick, 30-second clip. And what did he say? He said the US dollar system, the world reserve currency that started with Bretton Woods, worked. We need to replicate that again.
Yeah.
So what did he just say? He said there is going to be a reset. When we went from the way that it was before Bretton Woods that made the US dollar the world's reserve currency, that was a reset. And he's saying, we're going to do this again. It worked once, it's going to work twice. He just said something that a lot of the viewers here have been talking about for a long time, which is a reset, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
He said it. He might not be thinking the same way, but he said it. And so there is something happening with the de-dollarization of the world. And we're going to talk about the implications of that, but I want to watch what Warren Buffett has to say about it first, because this is kind of interesting too.
All right, here we go.
And obviously we wouldn't want to be owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell. And that's the big thing we worry about with the United States currency. I mean, the tendency of a government to want to debase its currency over time is there's no system that beats that. You can pick dictators, you can pick representatives, you can do anything, but the people, there will be a push toward weaker currencies, and of course that is, I mentioned very briefly in the annual report that the fiscal policy is what scares me, and then
And it says there that he's going to move on $348 billion into Japanese yen, right above that talking point.
I mean, how silly. So Warren Buffett, very smart investor, right, Bill? You don't become one of the world's 5 wealthiest people without being a smart investor, right? So, but here's where it's not just the BRICS nations that are wanting to de-dollarize. It's our own citizens, these billionaires. They're dumping U.S. treasuries and going into the yen. The yen, it's like you're going from bad to worse or from worse to worse, right? And so the interesting though, Warren Buffett has poo-pooed gold for the longest time, literally for the longest time, because as a value investor, he likes to buy companies that are depressed. He likes to buy things that have subscriptions like newspapers, things that spit off income. That's the kind of investor that he is. So they bought like 1/3 of one of the largest gold mines in Canada a few months ago. Mm-hmm. He's a value investor. So what does that mean? He thinks that price is going to go up. No longer does he think that, gold doesn't provide a utility. So you start to put some of these things together. What utility is there in gold? It's a financial metal. It doesn't take too much to think utility could be something that's used as a currency. It provides value. It does something, right? So when you look at him getting rid of dollars, he's saying and wanting the U.S. dollar to collapse. That's why he's getting out. Wow. But he did say something that I thought was very interesting, and he said governments want a weak currency. Why would they want a weak currency? Because he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Presidents, they do not want a strong currency. I don't care what anybody says. Why? Because if you are an exporting nation or you want to export, you want to have a weak currency compared to others. Because if your currency is weaker compared to the yen, for example, Japanese citizens will say, we can use our yen and buy more stuff if it's made in America because our currency is weaker. So a weak currency actually increases exports to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. It will ultimately increase your manufacturing. It'll bring jobs back then. And then it's this vicious cycle. That starts to happen, and you get a strong currency. And then what do you do to weaken it? You print money, right? This is just the economic political cycle. Well, we're in the era right now of the BRICS nations wanting to de-dollarize us, the Middle East wanting to de-dollarize us. They're wanting to control the world's supply of oil. You've got billionaires in this country who want to de-dollarize us, even though they're Americans, right? So he's an opportunist, right? I would say that's a good characterization of him. He's going to do what's best for Warren Buffett, right? And so, but he sees the writing on the wall. When you look at where the flow of funds are going globally, where are they going? And I'm not talking about a country. Money flow is going into natural resources. It's going into gold. Yep. That's why central banks are buying it. When you look at what's the largest asset class that central banks around the world own? It used to be the US dollar. It's now gold. Right, so this is interesting. This paradigm shift, this maybe reset that Scott Bessent is talking about. Right. Because we're going to have a reset. What is it? Because you can't keep a system that's broken, LT. The way that we have it, fiat-based money creation, it is broken. And like we talked about on the last show, the reset might be tangible backed currency, or it could be cryptocurrency or tangible backed cryptocurrency. It's just going to be different from what we have right now. Mm-hmm. And Trump is trying everything to keep us at the top of the heap.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of headwinds, a lot of global political pressure to make sure that the U.S. isn't at the top of the heap, right? So this is the battle that we're in. This turbulence, this volatility, it's extreme. And this is where opportunity comes in for all of us, right? Because during times of volatility, and I had bajillion people on April 15th say, I need to sell some gold and silver right now. I need to sell it because I have to pay our taxes, right? It's like, okay, it doesn't happen in an hour. Give me 3 days, but
right.
And we do it, right? But here's where, what happens when we see these types of activity, this volatility, because we don't know from moment to moment what Trump is going to do with Iran. So to do the markets, this causes big swings, 5% up one day, 5% down the other day, not just in gold and silver, but in the stock market and everything. But we have to strip away that noise, LT, and say, what was it before the Iran conflict happened? It was silver going up over 140% last year. It was gold going up over 70%. Iran conflict happened, a shock to the system. And everyone thinks this is going to be the future, right? It's like, no, this is the now. The future is what was it before this temporary shock? And that is the resumption of the trend that we saw before. Because nothing changed. Nothing changed with supply and demand. It didn't. But what we saw is volatility and uncertainty during times of conflict that happen. We get to take advantage of it. Don't look at it as a negative. Look at it as, I can allocate on the dip. Right? That's what we should be doing here.
Yeah. So when folks reach out to you and they look to bring their IRAs over, what do you guys do exactly when they reach out and to your team?
We help them by being listeners, right? So it's like you call in and you're going to expect somebody's going to pitch you hard.
Right.
No. We've told people that it might be best for them to not even allocate into gold and silver right now because they haven't even established an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Like you have to make sure that you have enough to cover yourself if a very unforeseen circumstance comes in, right? But so you have a few months of expenses on hand. After that, it's like, how close are you to retirement? Do you want growth? Do you want income? What's your risk tolerance? What kind of safety do you want, right? And so this is what kind of makes me giggle sometimes, because someone just say, I can't stand the government and I can't stand the banks and I'm afraid I'm going to lose everything. So I want to put some money into gold and silver. Well, how much do you want to do? Well, my stockbroker said maybe 10% max. It's like, okay, so you're going to keep 90% in the thing that you think is coming down. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? So what we do is we listen and say, okay, what do you want? Why are you thinking the way that you're thinking? And then we'll craft a strategy. Maybe it is 10% of your portfolio. Maybe it's 100%. Maybe it's 50%. Maybe it's just a perfect hedge against your paper assets to physicals, right?
Yeah.
We'll listen to you. We'll guide you. And we're going to bend over backwards. So you call, we'll have this conversation. Then you send the funds. You either wire them or we open up an IRA account. It's just a 15-minute e-sign document. That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. My team will do the rest and make it really easy for you.
Yeah. Had they done it a couple of weeks ago, remember when we talked, silver had gone down to around $66, $67, and now it's up to nearly 80 today. So it would already been a huge increase just in the past few weeks. And we know it's going to continue to go up just based off our interview last week. Releasing that, I mean, looking at big numbers, predictions from those folks. It was a great interview. I mean, all the way up to $300 possibly an ounce by the end of this year. Big predictions playing out. So, man, what a great time to jump in on this.
Absolutely. It's fantastic time. Take advantage of this news cycle. Take advantage of the trend.
Yeah.
The trend doesn't take advantage of you because it's not going to be here forever. As soon as the conflict in Iran ends, gold and silver resume their massive run up that we saw last year.
Yeah. We're looking forward to that and so much more. Man, what a great shift of things happening. I mean, we were just talking about it last, with my family. We actually mentioned to him, isn't that amazing? President Trump changed the Gulf to Gulf of America. Then he went into Venezuela and took Maduro out, so the shipping lanes are open. And then he goes, hey, if you need some oil, come on over here. Next thing you know, the tanks are heading this way, and you're like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
How strange it is, and how amazing that we've been watching these things play out. And gold and silver is now going up to where it's supposed to be, just like things are being realigned on this earth in a perfect way. I'm watching precious metals also not even near what they're supposed to be, based off the past 100 years. And we're just grateful to be here. Thank the Lord that we're all in touch. Folks' lives are changing, just like they told me on the cruise. Dr. Kirk Elliott changed our life, LT. Thank you so much for his interview. So I just want to make sure we give you another shout out for those that listen to these every 4 or 5 videos. A reminder, you are changing people's lives. God has touched all of us, and we just appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. God bless.
God bless.